Have the hardest schedules in the NFL. The Chicago Bears have the hardest strength of schedule. Here we see the reverse of that. The Cleveland Browns have the easiest strength of schedule based on teams' records from last year. So these are certain factors that you have to keep in mind as we start projecting which teams might be improved, which teams might go someplace. You see Cincinnati in the middle of that mix, some of the NFC South teams. But let's start, Bart Scott, with those Cleveland Browns. They have the easiest schedule in the NFL. Who do you believe should be their Week 1 starter at the quarterback position?
I think it's Deshaun Watson, and I don't think it's even close. I think, you know what's amazing? When you look at Deshaun Watson, he seems like he's like a 10th-year senior in college.
Yeah.
This dude's only 30 years old. I think Todd Monken is a football savant. He's an offensive guru. I think he figures out how to take advantage and go back to those Bill O'Brien-type offenses. Play action, throw the ball down the field. I said it. Don't look at me like that, Luke.
We just don't know. We don't know what Deshaun Watson is at this point. Look, I think it should be whoever actually emerges and really wins this job. Shedeur Sanders has to be right in there. And let me just remember this name. Remember the name Taylor Green. We've talked about him a lot, Greeny. We talked about him on the desk at the draft. I know he's only a 6th-round pick, and he's a guy who's a developmental project. Todd Monken has worked with guys like this. You can't have this guy just sit on the bench. He's too big, too fast, too explosive. I think this competition is wide open.
Doesn't it?
Wide open.
I agree. Earlier we talked about Patrick Mahomes coming back just off of last season, and there's going to be some rust. Sean Watson has missed several seasons and tore his Achilles tendon twice. I think it'd be improbable.
He's 30 years old, and doesn't football always work out this way? When he's up for a contract, he reminds everybody how good he is and make people have to reevaluate should they take a chance on him for these quarterback-needy teams. It always works out like that, especially in Cleveland. Cleveland's going to say, where was this at when we needed it? Now we got to let you go because we wasted $230 million.
It's an interesting story to watch in Cleveland. They have a lot of quarterbacks, but do they actually have one? Mike T, let's go to the next one. Can Daniel Jones lead the Colts, who play the 4th easiest schedule, and he's coming off injury? Can they win their first division title in more than a decade?
Absolutely, Green. To use your line, sneaky big news. I think the Colts are going to be really good. 8-5 when they started games. They finished the season 8-9. So I think they did some things defensively. Drafted C.J. Allen, a healthy Sauce Gardner, and then keeping Alec Pierce. If Daniel Jones is healthy, they can win this division.
Bart, you think that division is wide open?
Yeah, it's wide open because we don't know what C.J. Stroud is. Tim Beasley gave me a stat. Check this out, Greeny. First quarterback in history, to throw 5 interceptions and have 5 fumbles in the postseason, and he did it in 2 games. I don't know if he's the long-term solution there. They have to really have some honest conversations about themselves. That defense is Super Bowl ready. You couldn't play worse, Lou.
Have you seen C.J. Stroud? Have you seen him lately?
No.
My man is put together. Look,
what does that mean?
Well, it's the same argument that you're making. Just because he had those bad games at the end of last year, does that mean that automatically in 2026 and the rest of his career he's doomed?
Not
that he's just going to play that way?
Not since Bobby
He has
Slow
totally revamped himself. Wait till this is the Texans' year. The Texans are going to. I'm saying C.J. Stroud is going to a different level in a positive way.
So he got the Luke Ozempic, and he's looking like in the best shape of my life. They ain't got nothing to do with throwing the football. Decision making.
Come on now.
5
Bart,
picks.
we know it's all tied together. My man looks totally different right now. This is the Texans' year. The Texans are going to run away with this division.
Can he read coverages? Why? I don't care what he look like. He can have a beer belly, drinking Duff beer all day if he's throwing touchdowns.
Bart.
It's an interesting conversation, but here's the point. This is a huge year for C.J. Stroud.
You're right, and he's treating it as such. The things that he can control right now, he's controlling.
I like it. I like the debate.
He's controlling.
A lot of people sort of feel this.
There are going to be a lot of people.
What do you think, Mike?
And oh, by the way, Jacksonville won the division.
Yeah, that's exactly right. So we'll keep an eye on them, too. And then let's stay in the AFC North. Super Bowl or bust for Joe Burrow and the Bengals. They have the 3rd easiest schedule. Lewis, do you see them as a legit Super Bowl team?
I think the playoffs have to be the floor for them. They have to get into the postseason. I don't think it's Super Bowl or bust, but it's definitely playoffs or bust. And this is going to ride on and hinge on all of the additions they made to the front 7 of this defense in particular. Dexter Lawrence, Boye Moffitt, Jonathan Allen, Cassius Howell, who they drafted out of Texas A&M. These guys have to come through. They have to come through in a big-time way. This defense has been historically bad. It has given up just points hand over fist. They have got to be better. Offensively, Joe will do his part, but the floor is just inclusion in the playoffs.
Joe Greeny, if we evaluate them through the prism of does this keep Joe Burrow more likely a Bengal long-term or not, they had a heck of an offseason to go get someone like Dexter Lawrence and all the other guys that we just mentioned. If I'm sitting there as Joe Burrow, hey, they're trying hard. The easy thing would have been to stick at 10 and draft the best player. They went out and got a really good player, a difference maker who's 28 years old, not coming off his best year, but I think they had a heck of an offseason.
What do you think of Cincinnati?
I think Cincinnati just need a little bit of defense, and I think they can play with anybody. I think they're the Dallas Cowboys of the AFC. But the problem is Joe Burrow's like Fred Norberg from Naked Gun 1.5. He can't stay healthy. Who knows what his next injury is going to be, right? It's always that. It's the appendix. It's always something. Can he stay healthy? Can he play a full season? And can his defense take the next step just to be average?
We're not that far removed from having conversations about the AFC North as being the best division in the NFL. They feel far from that now.
Yeah.
The Browns, we just had a conversation. Who knows what their quarterback situation is? The Steelers, I mean, they're literally sitting around praying that Aaron Rodgers shows up and saves the day. I don't even know what that means.
Yeah,
Baltimore might be in a time of transition. Maybe Cincinnati, a sneaky, interesting pick in that division.
Yeah, look, Al Golden is a heck of a defensive coordinator. He has got some people to work with now up front. He's got some big bodies to work with on the first and second level in particular. That's where he has to make his money. Look, injuries, the thing with that's not the kind of thing that's really factoring into my analysis as far as what ultimately their upside can be. They're going to move the ball. They're going to score points. As you just said, as we've said about with Dallas in particular too, if you can just get top 15 defense, if you can get Cincinnati to finish in the top 15 or 16, they're probably going to be contending for their division, and they will definitely be a wild card.
Quick final word.
Greedy, go back to that graphic. The Steelers are the third most favorite team in the division. Aaron Rodgers is going to be 43 in December if he plays.
Yes, absolutely. No. I mean, it is a time. The only team that didn't change coaches during this offseason was Cincinnati. Time for a game that we call, believe it or not, NFC East edition. Lewis, we start with you. If I say Jalen Hurts is the quarterback with the most approved this season, believe it or not?
Yes and no. I do believe it from a personal sense, not from a team accomplishment sense, because he's already won a Super Bowl and almost won another. But I think there's just been so much talk surrounding Jalen and his inability to maybe play the game at a high level when you're talking about specific aspects of quarterbacking, like throwing the football in the middle of the field, working under center, executing play action on a consistent basis. I think he wants to prove something, and I think he is going through this year.
Probably do it without A.J. Brown. We'll see if they do indeed trade him off the beginning of June. Bart, let me come to you. If I said the Cowboys defense is going to be so improved, they'll make it back to the NFC Championship game for the first time in forever. Believe it or not?
I know we say this every year, Greeny, but believe it. I believe it. I tell you, Christian Parker has a lot of things to work with that's good. You talk about replacing Parsons with Rashawn Gary. You talk about Downs, Overshaw coming back, Kenny Clark. You talk about Quentin Williams. Believe it, Green.
Yeah. Christian Parker, the new defensive coordinator there in Dallas. All they have to do is get decent with that offense, and they could be special. Finally, Mike T, staying in the division. Believe it or not, Jackson Dart and the Giants are going to go from worst to first in the division this year.
They will be improved, and I think John Harbaugh is a consequential acquisition by the New York Giants, but this is a team that only won 7 games over the last 2 years. And while Jackson Dart has shown flashes of ability, Greedy, as Hembo reminded me, he was hit 148 times in 14 games, and that is simply not sustainable in this day and age.
Absolutely. And that's why I brought it up with Troy yesterday. So we had Troy Aikman here yesterday for a half hour. It was a terrific sit down, and I was really able to go in depth with him on some things. And we talked about Jackson Dart and his style of play. Here's what Troy said.
We had that discussion about him protecting himself, and within the first 5 plays, he just got absolutely blown up on the sidelines. He didn't get out of bounds. You know, when you're young, when you get into the league, you do have this mindset, and that's, you know, like Jim McMahon, I think that's part of what makes him him. Some of that bravado and toughness is how a lot of these quarterbacks are wired and how they gain their edge.
So we got a fine line that we have to walk there, right? Because I am one of those who believes in the Giants. I know you talk about how few games they won the last 2 years. Last year in particular, they handed games away. Early in the season, they had the Denver game being the most obvious example, but there were so many games last year they not only could have won, but absolutely should have won. So you just flip a few of those on the margin, add some pieces, which they have, add an outstanding veteran coach, quarterback in his second year. Sounds a lot like New England from the year before. I'm not saying they're going to wind up in the Super Bowl, but I could see them taking a big jump. But this is the key. Because Jackson Dart is supposed to be representing Big Blue. He's got to stay out of the blue tent. How do you do that? Troy was just saying sometimes you can't really get it out of a guy.
Well, look, this is going to really be something that's really going to have to be driven from within Jackson Dart and his ability to understand that, look, you have your own brand, you have your own style, and that has gotten you to this point. But look, there's a reason why we all love football. We love the team aspect of it. We love the camaraderie aspect of it. We love the fact that it is a dependent sport. Quarterback is a dependent position. His success is dependent upon him being on the field. He needs time on task, right?
Yeah.
He needs to develop a relationship now with another new offensive coordinator in Matt Nagy. If they want to accomplish all the big goals, which is winning the division, winning the conference, winning the Super Bowl, returning them to glory, he has to be on the field. So at some point, there is that fine line from saying, look, this is my own personal brand, but this is the brand the team needs me to really represent.
That's a great job by Hembo of illustrating the point I was making in my head with the exact numbers. They had 10-point leads in 5 different games they lost last year. You flip those around and everything looks vastly different. But let's talk about the young quarterback taking a beating.
And you talk about the Giants, they're swimming upstream because you can argue that he's the newest quarterback, but you can also, if you're a ranking quarterback, you would say he was 4th. He's swimming upstream. In the division. So he has to understand how important and how vital he is. And I think the first thing that Harbaugh did to try and prove that to him was to go out and get Patrick Ricard, because he wants him to know that we're going to run the football. We're going to bring a tough brand of football. We're going to run the ball. That's why Greg Roman is there, to protect the young guy from himself. It's arrogance when you're that young, right? And you don't understand how important you are to the organization. He has to understand that, and Harbaugh is going to beat that message in his head. He had Lamar Jackson, and you saw Lamar start to look like he wants to slow down. You want to tell him, hey, man, it is a $500 million out here if you can play for 15 years. But you got to get there. And every young dude thinks that he's an alien and he's something that the league has never seen. Just ask Anthony Richardson. It's cost him his career and his opportunity to be a starter in this league, and it could happen to you if you miss too much time.
And Greeny, Bart will remember this, but when we had Mark Sanchez in his formative years, Rex Ryan actually brought in Joe Girardi, who at the time was the manager of the Yankees, to learn how to slide better. Like, to be able to protect yourself is part of playing the quarterback position. Know when to slide, know what to throw away. Remember, the second best thing that happens in a passing game is an incomplete pass. So Jackson Dart has to take that step for the Giants to be able to compete meaningfully.
No question about it. I think he will. I'm a huge believer in his. If they get some of this stuff out of him, Bart looks a little skeptical.
He doubled down in some of his interviews. Sometimes you got to learn